This is no ordinary old fashioned. This is a Big Smoke old fashioned. Let me show you how to make it. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Matt, I'm the Whiskey Nerd, and like I said, this week I'm making a smoky old fashioned, and I'm not going to use a cocktail smoker or any other gadgets or gizmos like that to get the smoke into my cocktail. My smoke is going to come from this whiskey right here, the Teeling Blackpitts Cask Strength Big Smoke whiskey. This is a very nice, very smoky whiskey. Now, if you haven't seen my review of this whiskey, check it out. There'll be a link up there, there'll be a link down below, but suffice it to say, this is a very smoky and sweet Irish whiskey. It was only distilled twice, very heavily peated, so it does have a lot of smoke, but unlike some Scotch whiskies you might get from the island of Islay, this is not going to have that iodine kind of medicinal note to it. It still has all that peat smoke, all that savory notes, but it comes through with a nice bit of sweetness, and that's kind of mainly because it was only aged in bourbon cask and it was distilled twice because the distillery wanted to highlight the smokiness for this whiskey. Now, normally I wanted to experiment and I wanted to try out different kind of cocktails to try out with this, but a lot of cocktails online featuring Scotch whiskey or smoky whiskey tend to try to hide the smoke or kind of mask it or mix it up with something else, or only use a little bit of smoky whiskey to try and like accent a cocktail rather than letting it be the front and center flavor. So that's why this week I'm making an old fashioned with this, because I want that smoke to be front and center. So I'm going to be using 2 ounces of my Blackpitts cask strength whiskey. It is cask strength at 56.5%, but like I said, it is nice and sweet, so it will come through nicely into the cocktail without overpowering. I've also got a very nice, just 2-to-1 brown sugar syrup, some Angostura bitters and some orange bitters to round it out and just give me a very nice, simple but full flavored cocktail. So that's enough talking about the cocktail. It's time to make it. It is an old fashioned, so it is going to be a stirred drink. So we're going to get our mixing glass and we're going to get a nice rock of ice into there, and we're going to add in the rest of our ingredients. We're going to start off with our whiskey. This is, like I said, the Teeling Blackpitts Cask Strength whiskey, nicknamed the Big Smoke because it is quite a smoky whiskey, but is still very nice and sweet and just a very enjoyable smoky whiskey to drink. So that there was 2 ounces of the Teeling Blackpitts Cask Strength, and now we're going to go in with our sugar syrup. This is a 2-to-1 brown sugar syrup, so it will have a lot of flavor. So I'm only going to go in with about 10 ml of this sugar syrup. You can go in with more or less if you want to go in with a sweeter or a lighter whiskey, but because this is a cask strength whiskey, I do want to kind of balance out a little bit of that weight. So normally, whereas I might go in with maybe 7.5 ml, went in with 10 ml just to keep things nice and balanced. Next up, it's the Angostura bitters. Just going to go in nice and simple, 2 dashes of Ango and 1 dash of orange bitters. Just to kind of, that's my favorite. If you like different bitters, if you don't like the orange bitters, feel free to change it out. But I personally like a little bit of orange with the Angostura bitters. Then it's just stir it down for about 30 seconds to get things nice and cold, and then we're going to strain it out. Okay, I can feel from the outside of the glass that this is nicely chilled now, so we're just going to get ready to strain it out. We're going to get our rocks glass and we're going to get a fresh rock of ice, pop that in there, and then we're just going to put our strainer on top, strain it out, and then garnish it with an orange peel. So just straight up, nice and simple. For an old fashioned, I don't like messing around with anything overly fancy or overly kind of complicated. I like the presentation of just a simple ice cube, the oils of an orange peel over the edge, drop the orange peel in, and that there is how I make a smoky old fashioned. Now real quick, before I taste this cocktail, if you're new here, scroll down, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. I put out cocktails featuring whiskey every Friday. I put out whiskey reviews every Wednesday, including the review of the Teeling Blackpitts. So if you want to see that, make sure you hit subscribe. But for now, let's taste this cocktail. That is nice. I have made these a few times now. I really enjoy it because up front, you get the smell of that peat smoke coming through. When it hits your tongue, you get that kind of richness from the sugar syrup, the kind of heavily, kind of oily, rich character of the whiskey comes through as like a kind of a caramel, butterscotch, toffee kind of note. And then behind that, you get this big hit of smoke. Like when I tasted the whiskey, you get initially a burst of sweetness, followed by this really rich, deep, smoky character that comes through. I have used those like cocktail smokers before, and those do get smoke into a cocktail, but it's often kind of like really sharp or kind of acrid, that kind of layer of smoke on top. This though, it's a big smoky influence. It is deep seeded into the cocktail, and that's kind of what I like about it, because it's a very nice whiskey. It's a cask strength whiskey, but it doesn't really feel like a cask strength whiskey because the alcohol is very well incorporated, and in this cocktail, the alcohol is very well incorporated. It doesn't burn, it's not sharp, it's just nice and rich, and it feels like you're giving a big kind of smoky, peaty hug. So that's probably all there's to say about the Big Smoke Old Fashioned, but what's your kind of favorite Old Fashioned riff? Or do you think that there is a whiskey cocktail featuring peated whiskey where this would actually shine really well? Let me know down in the comments below, but for now, I'm going to keep on enjoying this, and I will see you next time. Sláinte.